Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Filippo Lorenzin, and I am the Artistic Director of the MOCDA Museum of Contemporary Digital Art. Thank you for joining us at this special artist talk with the digital artist, Josh Chaplin. Hi, Josh. How are you?
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Josh was born and raised in the UK and is specialized in the creation of real-time virtual game worlds for VR and real-time applications. His focus lies in environment art, design, and digital art. His work had been featured at exhibitions including CADAF Online and the Arts Rights Prize, winning awards and acclaimed artist features. So first of all, congrats, Joshua. And secondly, today we are here to talk about your latest project, The Core. What is it?
So the core is a spatial art experience and virtual world. Yeah, you can see it now on the screen. So essentially, I kind of view it as a bit of an experiential kind of extension to my art platform, on profile, I should say. It is essentially a platform where you go to kind of, view my artwork and kind of experience different spatial experiences that I'm kind of hosting at a given time. It's essentially also kind of a landing page rather than it just being like a 2D website. You're kind of just browsing, scrolling down and viewing pieces of artwork. You can enjoy artwork in a different place, in a more experiential way. And it also acts as a gallery in some ways. You can view pieces of artwork, the owners, the collectors, the provenance of it, like kind of when it was minted, the history behind it. So it's kind of like an all-in-one kind of, landing page of some kind, but, spatial. And
can I ask you, when did you start working on it? Like, when was the first time you came up with this idea, and why you came up with this idea?
It's a bit of a crazy project. I mean, it's taken me about a year to make. Concept wise, it's probably been in my head for much longer. But I've become a full-time artist maybe August last year, and I kind of wanted to. So my history actually lies in making games for a living and making virtual reality experiences, and so I kind of do world building like all the time, and I also obviously make digital art, and so I kind of wanted to fuse them together into some crazy project, and that's kind of how it came about, I guess.
I think it's quite interesting the fact that you felt at a certain point the need to create a custom-made exhibition space to present your art, as if the normal, the more traditional, so to speak, exhibition spaces you can find online were like not enough for your works in a way. So I just wonder, what does the core add to your works? Do you think that like the core is the best way to experience your art, or is it more like a work by itself that somehow contains all your projects?
That's a good question. So I would say I would definitely kind of deem it to be a piece of art itself, just because it holds so many kind of like cherished kind of ideas and values, and like it's a very, very personal space. It's kind of got manifestations of certain character and family member, even like family members like exist in the world in some kind of way. So it's super like kind of personal. But I guess the value it adds to my artwork is I guess it adds kind of like an experiential kind of extension to the actual art itself. So, I mean, there's a really good, actually, I'll zoom in on a kind of a zone that I've got in this world that hosts a body of work called The Expanses. And essentially, The Expanses is kind of like a body of work that looks at different areas of the metaverse and virtual worlds, and kind of like, composes them out, potentially like, explores potential future worlds of what we might live in the future, And, having those pieces of work in the world, I can then kind of craft and tell more story through the landscape and the environment of the world itself.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, you might actually own the artwork, but if you go in this experience, you can actually play through the actual environment and learn more about the narrative, the storytelling.
Mhm.
So I guess it adds another layer, and unlocks another layer of storytelling and
I see.
narrative.
I wonder if you can take us for a virtual tour. I'm very curious. I was able to have a look at it, but I mean, in the case our public doesn't know, the core is actually pretty new. I mean, if I'm not wrong, you released it on the 7th of October, so literally 5 days ago.
Yes, yeah. Currently, it is. It's not online right now. Just going through some bug
Mhm.
fixes. But basically, it launched around the 30th of September
Mhm.
um, for private viewings,
Wow.
and we got some really positive feedback. Everyone who went in there like really enjoyed it and was immersed and was kind of, yeah, just like super curious about the space. And yeah, it was online for most of the weekend after the 7th. And yeah, I needed to fix some bugs, so it's just having some downtime, and then we'll launch it back up indefinitely.
That's interesting. I mean, again, looking at what you did with the core, makes me think about the concept of, creative control. Again, I presume that, you design the core with the specific purpose of showing your works in a way that would have been impossible, of course, otherwise. Do you have a feeling that this may be one of the first examples of custom-made exhibition spaces designed by artists to showcase their works? Like, do you think this is going to be more common in the future, or probably not? I know this is a tricky question. I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
I'm definitely not the first. There's definitely experiences out there, and I definitely see this being like a massive kind of toolkit or a tool, yeah, like a set of being kind of adding more value to art itself, if that's even a possibility or an idea.
Mhm.
One like particular case that really pops up in my head is the artist Ferocious,
Mm.
and kind of some of the art that he makes, and
Yep.
especially in his latest pieces of work, you can kind of see it almost being animated in like a 3D or like an interactive way.
Mhm.
And I can definitely see Ferocious, and I'm pretty sure he's got a world coming out soon called Pharaoh World, uh, where he, can kind of release a piece of artwork and then release like a 15-minute kind of cinematic experience that kind of is unlocked through that NFT. And
Mhm.
this is essentially kind of the power of having virtual worlds as like a creative medium for the artist, because
Yeah.
you can unlock more creativity. There's more control over kind of how it is digested and observed. Um, and yeah, I
Absolutely.
think it's going to be super powerful in the future. I think a lot of people will learn how to build their own worlds and uh,
Mhm.
really tap into it.
I just love this concept, this opportunity, because at the end of the day, the public, especially those that are interested in virtual worlds, are getting used to the idea of ever-changing virtual environments, isn't it? I mean, I don't know if you play Fortnite. Personally, I don't play Fortnite, but of
I don't
course,
play it
I
now.
tried it. I wasn't very good at it. I'm very sorry. I'm very good at other video games. I'm so sorry about that. But let's say that we have a generation, and with generation, I don't mean only teenagers or like people in the late teens or early 20s. I'm talking about like a generation of media consumers that are getting used to the idea of coming back to virtual worlds that may feature surprises and and changes since the last time they visited it. So yeah, I'm very curious to see what will happen when it will be available to the public. Just to confirm, would you call it a metaverse? And I'm asking this simply because I think I have a pretty precise idea of the definition of the metaverse, but just for the sake, for our public, like will people be able to interact with each other while visiting the core?
Okay, so I definitely wouldn't deem it to be a metaverse. No, it's a standalone virtual world. It is not hyper connected to everything in a kind of persistent spatial way. It is definitely just the virtual world. Unfortunately, no, it's not multiplayer right now. It is essentially, I guess, when I was first designing it, I was thinking about this as a prospect and having it kind of like has a bit of a social hub, but I didn't really want that in the end. I kind of wanted it to be super personal, and I wanted literally just to be the person in there who's the observer, and
oh yeah,
it's essentially just a kind of a conversation between the observer and the spatial canvas, I guess. And I think anyone in there kind of like interacting with, say, someone else it's going to take that away from it. So yeah,
makes absolute sense to me. Given that now you have the core at your disposal, as an artist and designer, and just as a creative person, do you think you may start making works specifically to be on display in the core, if you know what I mean? Like, I presume that all the works you made so far, of course, the core wasn't ready, so of course you didn't make those works specifically for this, virtual environment. So I just wonder again if now that you have a core, your practice may change in the future, or maybe not.
Yeah, no, definitely. So yeah, definitely. I think going into the future, I mean, I'm definitely very experimental with the way I make art anyway. So I never kind of zone in on one kind of area. I'm quite bad like that. I'm always kind of jumping on ideas and exploring different things. But no, definitely now I've got a platform like this, I'll always be thinking about, how if I release a piece of art, say, how can I manifest it in this world that's going to, add kind of experience to it, I guess, and add cinematic kind of storytelling to the piece itself. I mean, it has got a small collection so far. I released a small kind of Genesis kind of core collection. It's got like a one of one, and I released a limited edition collection for like collectors and friends and supporters of the project, because it's been a long road and some people have really helped me out with it. And yeah, I also released a 500 edition token that kind of marks like a foundation for the world,
Nice.
which may or may not have some relevance in the future. But yeah.
I see what you mean. It's a way to even remember the first stage of this new chapter. It makes absolute sense to me. Do you think you will ever mint, the let's call them not seasons, but let's call them, different versions of the core, or no?
I could definitely mint like certain areas of it for sure. I would never mint like the whole world itself. It's definitely not something I'm currently thinking about doing. But again, like it links to the idea of having certain pieces of art having their own areas in the world anyway. And so technically, if you own a piece of the artwork in this world, you technically kind of have, well, you can't necessarily claim ownership through the blockchain, say, but you definitely own some pieces of art that exist in the world. Like for example, this piece on screen here. This is a piece that I made in February 2021, which now exists as a 3D sculpture in the world. And the owner of the work actually exists on the kind of the pedestal thing in front. And so yeah, there's definitely cases of that throughout the world.
That looks amazing, by the way. What are your plans for the core? Like, for example, how often? Like, I don't want to call it, a timeline for the next months, but do you already have an idea of, for example, how often you may update it?
No, I don't have like a strong plan in place. I'm definitely just going to relax and like really kind of sit on the idea of what the world is and what it wants to be. Just because the development stage has been so long, like getting it to exist and tangible is like a huge milestone. And so yeah, I'm definitely going to sit back and relax for a little bit. But I've got some strong plans. Well, not strong plans. I've got some kind of vague ideas of what I could potentially do in the short term.
Of course.
Some I'll tell now, but some I'll keep a secret.
Well, let's not spoil the surprise, Josh. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Josh. It was a pleasure to learn more about, the core, and of course, it's always a pleasure to connect with you.
As always.
Of course, I suggest our public to visit the core, by themselves as soon as it is available by following the link you can find in the description of this video on YouTube. Thanks again, Josh. And yes, thank you for joining me, and good luck with the core.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's nice to talk to you.
Take care, everybody. Good night.
See you later.